Let me tell you a story not about magic castles or wizards, but about a woman who created all of that when she had almost nothing. Wasn't always the iconic author whose name is now synonymous with Harry Potter. In fact, she didn't write her first words of Hogwarts fame with a huge publishing contract. After graduation, she worked various jobs, including as a researcher and bilingual secretary for Amnesty International. She had a love for language, and she was passionate, but sometimes passion doesn't pay the bills, and life was about to get a lot more difficult. Or in a cozy study with a steaming cup of tea by her side. Places like the Elephant House became her unofficial writer's office. With every spare moment, she chipped away at what would become Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. There was no fame, no editor, no cheering audience, just belief in the power of her story and a determination not to quit. She wrote them at rock bottom. The book spread through work. Kids stayed up all night reading. Parents and teachers were captivated too. It wasn't just a book, it was a portal to another world. Just a few years earlier, she was struggling to afford milk and heating. Now, she was building a literary empire. 12 of them, to be exact. She donated millions, used her platform to speak on mental health and income inequality, and even started her own charity Lumos to help disadvantaged children around the world. Some didn't even bother to reply. The stories became darker, more complex, taking on themes of prejudice, sacrifice, and the power of choice. And through it all, at the very center, was a boy who chose to do what was right rather than what was easy. Moshe didn't get it. She even says her first publisher only decided to go with it because his 8-year-old daughter loved the first chapter. Not when the world told her she had nothing. Remember the woman who wrote a global phenomenon from a cafe table with a baby at her side? Fueled by a little more than hope, imagination, and sheer determination. There's no doubt that kind of resilience is her real magic. Not even when she didn't believe in herself. But from picking yourself up after every fall, who pushed through rejection and brutaloche didn't just write books. She built a world that's stories real or imaginative, the power to change lives. She kept writing. She kept showing up. Joanne Rowling, or as millions know her, J.K. Rowling, midnight launchers, overflowing bookstores, and children lined up in sleeping bags just to get a copy. This was more than a book series. It was a cultural movement. She was born on July 31st, 1965, in Yate, Gloucestershire, England. She later said she had reached rock bottom. Even as her books exploded into movies, merchandise, and theme parks, she insisted on staying closely involved. She protected the integrity of her characters. She didn't just sell out, she built something bigger than herself. There were days she struggled to feed herself and her child. Days where the uncertainty felt crushing. But through it all, one thing remained. The story. Growing up, books were her escape. She was always scribbling stories, lost in her imagination. The idea of Harry Potter fell into her head uninvited, unexpected, and almost fully formed. She imagined a boy who didn't know he was a wizard, attending a magical school, meeting strange creatures, and forming powerful friendships. But even though the idea was lightning in a bottle, life wasn't going to hand her an easy path. Finding magic on the page before she ever invented her own. This left Rowling devastated. Her grief ran deep, and it found its way into her writing, shaping themes of love, loss, and the battle between good and evil in the Harry Potter series. Joanne attended the University of Exeter, where she studied French and the classics. There, she fell in love, got married in 1992, and had a daughter named Jessica. But the marriage ended quickly, and by the end of 1993, Rowling returned to the UK, a single mother with a baby, no job, and little more than a suitcase full of notes for a story she believed might matter someday. In 1990, on a delayed train from Manchester to London, shortly after that train ride, her mother died. She moved to Portugal and taught English as a foreign language. She settled in Edinburgh, Scotland, living on government assistance, sharing a cold flat with her daughter, and fighting depression. She wrote in while Jessica slept by her side in a stroller. When she finally finished the manuscript, she mailed it off to literary agents. One by one, the rejections came. Then, finally, Bloomsbury Publishing gave her a chance, though they warned her not to quit her day job, because children's books rarely made big money. But what came next? No one could have predicted. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone hit the shelves in 1997. And just like that, readers couldn't get enough. And it didn't stop there. Each release became bigger than the last. Rowling went from being a single mother in welfare to one of the most successful authors in the world. But success didn't change her values. She remained deeply connected with children's charities, especially organizations focused on single-parent families and education. She also proved that you can be a creative success without changing who you are. The Harry Potter universe grew with her audience. That's a reflection of the woman who created him. Rowling never gave up, not when editors turned her down. She often says that hitting rock bottom became the solid foundation on which she built her life. She reminds us that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the journey. That greatness doesn't come from winning every time. The girl who once wrote stories in the back of her notebooks, who struggled to get published. So, whenever you think you're too far down to climb back up, because that's where the true story of J.K. Rowling began. Not in Hogwarts, but in the hardest chapters of real life.